David Matthews' career is a fascinating journey through the landscapes of jazz, funk, and orchestral music. A notable arranger, composer, and keyboardist, his discography spans various genres throughout his prolific career. By the time he had released his album Dune in 1977, Matthews had already worked as an arranger and musical director for James Brown, influencing the development of the funk genre. He contributed to some of the best albums and songs by artists like George Benson, Idris Muhammad, and Lynn Collins. He had also experimented within the jazz fusion scene through his work with the Manhattan Jazz Orchestra, and later, the Manhattan Jazz Quintet. This eclectic background foreshadows his somewhat obscure album Dune, which is a tribute to Frank Herbert's famous 1965 science fiction novel of the same name. Herbert's Dune is a monumental work in sci-fi literature, recounting the epic tale of Paul Atreides and his family as they navigate political and environmental intrigue on the desert planet Arrakis. Matthews' album attempts to capture the essence and mood of Herbert's universe through a funky fusion of jazz and symphonic compositions. The mostly instrumental album features synths, trumpets, trombones, saxophones, clarinets, flutes, oboes, and strings, played by some of the best soloists of the day, including future Grammy winner Grover Washington Jr., who would go on to release his song Just the Two of Us 3 years later.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
The album is divided across two sides, with side 1 entirely consisting of the 4-part instrumental suite inspired by Dune, and side 2 made up of 4 tangentially science fiction related cover songs. Side 1, track 1, Arrakis, immediately immerses listeners into the vast and alien world of the desert planet. The slow strings mimic the gentle winds carrying spice through the air, while the slow, low rhythmic strikes repeat like the rolling of sand dunes. The ethereal synthesizers create a sense of anticipation, reflecting Paul's trepidation and awe. Featured halfway through the song is the first of several incredible solos by Grover Washington Jr., this time on soprano sax. This is shortly followed by another impressive guitar solo by Hiram Bullock. After this, the heroic rising theme returns from the beginning, before the song ends and fades into track 2, Sandworms. The funky, staggering bass line is suggestive of the sand walk used by the Fremen in order to walk without rhythm, as to not attract the Shai Hulud. Featuring a robust horn section meant to portray the ominous, colossal sandworms beneath the planet's surface, this track is characterized by its driving rhythm, led by bassist Gary King. The solos stand out here as well, with Washington Jr. on tenor saxophone and Eric Gale on electric guitar, weaving together intricate melodies that evoke the sinuous movements of the sandworms. The next track, titled Song of the Bene Gesserit, shifts the mood to a slower, more mystical and reverent tone, suggestive of the secret and powerful sisterhood. The composition is intricate, with layered harmonies and swirling saxophone solo fills that imply the complexity and depth of the Bene Gesserit order and their schemes. The use of minor keys and dissonant chords also add to the track's enigmatic quality. The fourth and final part of the Side 1 Dune suite is Muad'Dib, the Fremen name which Paul adopts when joining their ranks. This track is an exciting and pulsing piece that captures the character's transformation and ascent to power with a soaringly triumphant melody. David Sanborn blasts out a successive run of solos on alto saxophone, while the electric keyboard and guitar masterfully balance moments of tension and release, tracing Paul Atreides' journey from nobility to the prophesized leader of Arrakis. The song ends with a reprisal of the opening haunting theme, before fading out. Side 2 introduces the pattern of cover songs, with a rendition of Space Oddity by David Bowie.
Ground control to Major Tom.
This is the first and only song on the album to have vocals, provided by Googie Coppola, which helped to capture the essence of Bowie's storytelling through his lyrics, while still infusing the track with Matthews' unique jazz sensibilities.
Commencing countdown, engines on.
The lush and multi-dimensional arrangement diverges from the original's acoustic-driven folk simplicity, instead employing a full jazz orchestra to deliver a rich sound and extending instrumental sections with solos and improvisation.
Stepping through the door.
The echoing synths and electric pianos easily establish the otherworldly and cosmic feel before liftoff, when the entire orchestra grows and rises in a swell, which calls to mind the Beatles' A Day in the Life.
This is ground control to Major Tom.
Hiram Bullock returns to give a pair of wonderful sliding guitar solos, notable for having been sampled by MF Doom and Rap Snitch Knishes.
Snitches, telling all their business, sit in the court and be their own star witness. Do you see the perpetrator? Yeah, I'm right here. Fuck around, get the whole label sent up for years.
After the second of these solos fade out, Matthews himself plays a softer solo on piano, then joined by strings. Randy Brecker finally accompanies on trumpet as the song concludes. Next is a version of the theme from the 1972 sci-fi movie Silent Running. Originally sung on the film's soundtrack by Joan Baez, this version instead replaces her with David Sanborn and Grover Washington Jr. on alto and tenor sax, respectively. The last two songs are both renditions of pieces from John Williams' score for Star Wars, which had only been released that same year. The first is a wonderful take on Princess Leia's theme, which features David Tofani on flute, Lou Delgado on oboe, and Joe Shepley on flugelhorn. The familiar, enchanting melody is rendered beautifully by the trio, with support from Matthews' emotive piano playing and steady, grandiose drums. The ultimate track is boisterous fanfare, in the form of a cover of the main theme from Star Wars. However, the addition of tight drums and a galloping bass line makes this version of the theme just as, if not more of a funky disco track than Mecco's Star Wars themed Cantina Band, which was also released that year. Both, coincidentally, feature an interlude of R2-D2 noises. The jazz phrasing of the theme develops in increasingly interesting and novel ways as the song progresses. And Hiram Bullock shreds one last phenomenal guitar solo before the theme is restated resoundingly for the final time, and the album concludes. The album received little yet positive critical attention, though its reception was further complicated by a lawsuit from Frank Herbert, who argued that Matthews had infringed upon his copyrighted material, which ultimately buried the album. Despite these controversies, Dune by David Matthews stands as a testament to the creativity of its collaborators and offers a new way to experience the world of Dune purely through sound. For this reason and more, the album has earned a celebrated place in the annals of jazz fusion and science fiction music.